So recently I started exploring live streaming, and last week I did couple of live streaming, couple of live streams on this channel and also on my other channel, where I of course talk about Jira and Atlassian tools. And I thought I'll probably share my experience. And one thing that I want to talk about today is not to show you how to do live streaming using OBS, because a lot of people are doing it and it is not very difficult. So the live streams that I did last week was using OBS, but then I thought maybe I should explore ffmpeg, because on this channel, I think it was on the other channel where I talked about how to concatenate multiple MP4 files using ffmpeg, and ffmpeg is a great utility that you can use for doing wonderful things. You can actually edit your videos, you can do a lot of things with the audio files, and you can do live streaming with ffmpeg. So let me first show you the live stream that I am now able to configure and create, which is actually happening right now on my channel, on this channel, Blackberry Boy. So this is the live stream. So let me first show you. Let me first show you how it looks like. So I'll play the video. So there are a few elements on this live stream. Okay, so I'll pause the video. So so there are few things happening, and by the way, this is happening all using ffmpeg. I'm not really using OBS. So starting with, of course, the background. So this background is nothing but two image files. So if you notice, if you look at the live stream or the video, you will notice the stars which are twinkling, like they are. It seems like they are twinkling, and if you look at these bushes, and if you look at this owl, you will notice some movement in their body. Or this is, so if you look at this live stream, it is not just a static image. It can look like a video, or you can actually also use a video file, but I'm just using two images, and I'm of course streaming them in loop. And I'll of course show you my script, and I'll also share it with you. I need to of course tidy up the shell script, and I will hopefully upload it on maybe GitHub, so you can also use it. So these bushes, if you notice, there is a movement, and if you look at the owl's eye, this is also slightly moving. So I'm using two images. Now talking about this spectrometer, or basically some kind of audio visualization that you have here, I am basically using ffmpeg to create. So using ffmpeg, you can actually have different filters, and I'm basically using one filter. I guess it is a filter. Basically using ffmpeg, you can separate the channels of your audio. So I'm using basically one filter called show frequency. I'm not really sure if it is a filter or if it is like an additional parameter. I don't know the exact technical term that you have to use, but you have to basically specify these parameters in your ffmpeg command, which of course you can manage easily using a shell script. So let me just play it one more time. Okay, so the next thing, and by the way, what I'm doing here is, for the audio visualization, I'm separating the left and right channel, and I'm basically showing this visualization together. And for the other channel, I'm basically flipping it vertically. So it seems I like it. I mean, you can actually have just one. Like you can have these bars going in one direction, but I want to have this up and down, which I prefer. I mean, you don't have to. And of course, there is a color. If you look here, this is in a slightly dull blue color, which I wanted to match with the background. The last thing that I want to show you is, of course, this video. If you look at this streaming, so there is a background with, of course, some movement. There is this visualization of the audio, and we also have this text. Now, this text is nothing but basically what I did. I prepared some tests on my website, but I also wanted to show these tests in my live stream, and I wanted to make sure that when someone is looking at, let us say, this particular live stream, that user or someone who is maybe trying to prepare for Jira or any topic, he or she can basically look at the question. Then, of course, the options will appear, and then, of course, the correct answer will appear. So the idea here, what I'm thinking is that I will do this live streaming. At the same time, I will also help someone prepare for maybe an exam or maybe just validate the knowledge. So I'm quite happy with what I was able to achieve using only ffmpeg. I was doing something similar with OBS, and with the OBS, the only thing that I did was, of course, this script that I wrote that will actually look at the questions, and it will then write it to a file, and I'm using that file in the OBS. So we'll not use OBS today, we'll just use ffmpeg, and I'm going to show you my setup. So I have one folder where I'm basically organizing each and everything. So the first thing I want to show you is this directory called, so I have a couple of directories. So one is called images, where I can store the images that I want to show. So I have two images, as I mentioned before. So one is, you can. It is better if you name them with maybe a number, so that the script can easily pass them. So if you look at the image in the background, these are the two images. The second thing is, of course, the songs. I was hoping to play multiple songs, which I was doing earlier using OBS. So using OBS, I was basically playing songs on my local computer, and I was playing them, of course, using MPD, and I was basically redirecting the output using OBS in my live stream. But for the setup using ffmpeg, you can actually play multiple songs, but the way my script is configured, it works really well with just one song that I can, of course, play in the loop. So I have basically collected all the songs, all the copyright-free songs, and I have made one big MP3 file. It is not that big, it is only 50 MB. So the only content, the heavy content is nothing but this song, which is a 50 MB file, which I'm playing in the loop. Now, I also have these questions, and if you look at these questions, these are nothing but, for example, if I show you my question, so I can have multiple files for questions, for storing questions or test. So something like script runner for Jira server 1. So if you look at this particular file, I have like question, which is presented above. Like the first line is question, the second, third, and fourth lines are the options, and the correct answer has this prefix of star, which I'm basically not showing in the video output. So the script that I'm using, so I have two scripts. One script will do the live streaming. The other script will basically look at this particular file. It will then print each and every line one by one, like line number 1, line number 2, line number 3, line number 4. Then it will collect the correct answer, and it will display it separately at the very end. And then it will, of course, clear the file where it is basically outputting the lines one by one. So if I show you the file, so this streaming question is basically the file which I'm using in the ffmpeg script. Basically, ffmpeg will look at this file. So at any moment, this particular file will have either one line or no line, or basically it will be empty. So this is my setup, and let me show you the script to pass the questions first, then I'll show you the ffmpeg configurations. So if I look at the pass question script, it is of course nothing but a shell script. It looks very complicated, but it is not. The only thing which is right now which is happening is I need to clean up this script. I need to, of course, use a variable to store the location of the questions, and I need to make sure that if I share the script or the whole setup somewhere, the person who is trying to use the scripts should be able to use it with very less modifications. So the script will basically look for the questions. So you have to specify the file where you want to output the questions or those lines, individual lines. But when you run the script, you have to basically run the script with and you have to pass the file where you have the bank of questions. So based on that input, the script will pass that particular file, big file, and it will then write to this particular streaming questions file one by one. And of course, the script will look for the correct answer, and it will keep the correct answer in a variable, and at the very end of that first question, it will then display the correct answer, and it will also then write this it will display the correct answer, and it will also clear the file for the next question. Now I need to, of course, as I mentioned, I need to also make sure that this script works both on Windows and not exactly straight away on Windows, because on Windows, if you have WSL installed, Windows Subsystem for Linux, then you can use then you can run shell scripts, but few things don't really work as it is. So I need to, of course, test it properly. So this is the script for the questions, and the main script for live streaming is this one. Now, if you look at this particular file, there are a few things. So some of the configurations that you need to use for the live streaming, like the bitrate and the FPS and the quality, the size of your output stream, you can specify these here. Like, these are nothing but variables, and you can use, I mean, you don't have to use these variables. You can directly manage everything in your one big file, or maybe with just one command. And then I'm using this image folder where I'm storing all the images, which is the folder that I just showed you. Then, of course, the file that I want to play in the loop. And of course, for YouTube streaming, you need to basically specify this URL and your key. So this key is something that you will get when you start the stream. And this is the actual part where the main thing is happening, which is the actual stream. So ffmpeg will so let me try to explain. So the first thing is the image folder. So and by the way, when you are using ffmpeg, you can have multiple inputs, and then you can have basically those multiple inputs combined into one if you want. So the first input, in my case, I just have two inputs. One is, of course, the image folder that I'm using here, and I can specify here the loop so that it will play in loop continuously using -1. Same for the audio file. And then for the audio file, so based on these inputs, you can have multiple filters on top of it. So the first filter is for, if you look at this particular filter, the first line, 1A. So 1A means, AA is basically the audio, and 1 means second input, which is, of course, audio. If you want to do something with the video, you have to use 0. So for each and every input, either you have, so it could be 0V or 0A. I need to focus on the second input's audio, which is, of course, my audio file. Then I'm splitting the stereo into left and right channel. And then I'm using this show frequency audio visualization, where, of course, I'm displaying those fancy lines or bars that appear. And you can, of course, pass some additional parameters, like you can scale the height using different modes. So if you go to the ffmpeg documentation, you can learn about these things. I'm doing the same thing for the other channel, which is my, and by the way, when you're using these filters, so I'm using this filter underscore complex, because using filter underscore complex, you can do a bit more customization. You also have the option to use VF in ffmpeg, which I believe is not that, it is simple. You can't have multiple filters easily. When you're using VF, you have to use filter complex. Now, when you use these filters, you have to specify the input, which is, of course, in this case 1A, and then I'm of course using the right channel here. So I can output this as right. So this is like a variable name, which I can use later. I'll show you where. I'm doing the same thing for 1A, which is my second input's audio, nothing but my song, and I'm using this output as left. So I have right and left, those visualizations, but for the left one, I want to flip it. So if you look here in my visualization, I have these spikes going on top and also at the bottom, like in the opposite y direction. So what I'm doing here is I'm using this V flip option here. So using V flip, you can actually simply flip it. So once you V flip them, once you V flip the output for your left channel, you can then stack it on top of your right one. And the moment you do it, you can then you can then have like those two visualizations on top of each other, but in opposite direction. And then finally, I'm using so basically at this. So when you stack them together, you can have like one more output. So basically, the input is right visualization, left visualization, and then of course the output, which is nothing called as variable W, like a wave. And then I'm using this variable W in my original video, which is nothing but those two images. So basically the input, which is the first input, 0V, and for 0V input, I'm using this wave, which I'm overlaying on top of it. And when you overlay is nothing but, just having like some kind of a stack, I guess. But you're basically making sure that the wave is on top of the video. And you can also specify the location, which is in this case 0, which is X, and 200, which is Y. So that is why this appears at the bottom. It can be like somewhere in the center if you want. And for the text part, there is again one more filter. So what I'm doing here is I'm again using this BG, which is, so at this stage, BG will have three things: left visualization, right visualization, and of course that background image, and I'm calling it as BG. And on top of it, I'm using this draw text filter, which is nothing but a way to display a text. Now it could be a text or it could be a text file, but basically it can read from a text file, which I'm doing here. So I have this location. So this text file streaming question is the same file that I showed you earlier, where I'm basically writing using a shell script, and you have to pass some parameters like reload. So basically you want this file to be read continuously. I guess one is like 1 second, if I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it is 1. And then of course I'm using font color like white and font size boxed 1. If you want to draw a box like this box, I think it looks good. It improves the visibility. And for the box, you can also have the box color, which is black, but with some transparency. So you can have like the alpha here, like 0.5, 50%. And then of course you can have the border, like, there is a gap here. If you notice here, there is a gap like on the X and Y. Like basically this is a border. And you can specify the location. So location is X and Y coordinate, and it could be anywhere you want, but to keep it in the center, you can use this W minus text underscore W divided by 2. So there is like a small formula, a small simple calculation to basically align it at the very center of the screen or the output of your video. And then you have to specify the format. And that is it. So once you do that, you can actually have, so basically you can again map it to these V and 1A. So V is of course your video, 1A is your audio, and you can change the audio level, maybe if you like the volume, which is like in this case, I don't really want it to be too loud. So I'm reducing the volume to 0.5, like 50%. Then I can specify size here. So size is coming from a variable on top, which is 120, this one. If you notice here, 120, like 1280 by 720. So not really full HD, but HD, and I think it is fine. And rest of the things are, if you search online like how to stream using ffmpeg, you will find these parameters. You have to basically change these parameters based on what works for your computer, and you might need to change it, tweak it. So things like the Kodak and the preset, which is ultra fast or super fast. Then you can specify the rate, the FPS, and few other things, and the bit rate and maximum rate. So you have to basically play with these. And the same for the audio, like for the audio encoder, you can specify the configurations here. And finally, you have to specify the YouTube, basically the YouTube URL with a key. And to run this, of course, you have to run two shell scripts, one for this particular. So basically, if you look at the folder, one is the live stream audio video ffmpeg.sh, which is the main shell script to run to do the live streaming, and the other one for the questions. I could have combined them together, but I prefer keeping them separate, because maybe if the live stream is running and I want to change the questions, or maybe I want to stop the questions, I can do that. So I wanted this flexibility, and that is it. I'm actually quite happy with the setup. It works really well, to be honest. And as compared to OBS, I can do a lot more configurations. Using OBS, you can have this, like you can have this text output, but you can't really wrap them wrap it. You can't really have like a background. I mean, you can do few things with OBS, but you have to like create different scenes and using OBS, of course, you can't really have all the. I mean, there is one plugin called Spectralizer, I guess. Using that, you can actually have bars, and it is fine. I mean, I last week when I did the live streaming, that is what I did. But using ffmpeg, I think I have more control on various things, and because it is on nothing but a shell script, I can actually control it. I can maybe run it on a VPS. You can also run, of course, OBS on maybe a VPS, but you need some kind of graphical environment for OBS to run. But using this method, it is nothing but a shell script. And I actually tried running it on on one of my VPS just for testing purpose. I was thinking maybe I should do it 24/7, but I'm not really sure yet. I need to maybe perform more tests. I need to check the CPU usage, and maybe I'll do it 24/7. But I was able to actually run it on a VPS. I guess it was 6 GB RAM, but I'm sure it will work with less RAM. And I think the CPUs were. I'm not really sure about the CPUs. I think it was on. I think it's not a premium VPS. I'm basically using VPS Dime. It is very cheap, by the way, not very expensive, but it works really well for hosting my websites. Now, I of course need to improve these scripts and maybe make it a bit more user friendly, so that if I share these scripts with you, you can of course use them straight away. So I need to make sure the path can be dynamic. And the other script that I showed you for parsing the questions, I need to, of course, make it a bit more user-friendly, use a bit more variables, and then I'll, of course, share it on GitHub or somewhere. So you can also do the same thing using ffmpeg. And that is all I wanted to talk about today. And by the way, I think, and by the way, this setup is something that I did on this machine, which is running Arch Linux. But if you are following my channel, I guess you know that I also have I like X220 ThinkPad, and I bought one more X220 recently, last month, I guess. And on that particular machine, I was I had one extra hard disk that I pulled out from my HP laptop, and I was basically I basically can insert that hard disk in X220, and it will then boot to Windows straight away. So on Windows, you can actually have a Windows subsystem for Linux, and I have installed Kali Linux on that particular X220 Windows 10, and I basically used the same scripts, and the scripts worked straight away without any modifications. So that is a good thing about these scripts. You can expect these scripts to work across platforms, because ffmpeg is there on other platforms as well. The script will only work on Linux based systems, I guess. So I can confirm that it works on Arch Linux, and it also works on Kali Linux. But you can maybe test it on other distributions if you are maybe using Ubuntu. I guess it should work, and that is why I also want to upload it on GitHub, so other people can also report bugs to it if they have any suggestions or improvements. So that is all I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something new today. Thank you very much.